Was communism Marxism? Was it even socialism? Well, I would argue that it might have had certain similarities, or what went on there looked from the outside, or even perhaps to some people from the inside, like socialism. It ultimately wasn't. Although there were statues of Marx and Engels everywhere, there were red flags aplenty, singing of the International, big socialist slogans on every billboard. But was there actual socialism? There was state control of the economy. One could say that that is authoritarian socialism in practice, yes. But if you actually look at the writings of the people used to justify the regime that eventually became the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or the People's Republic of China, or any of those various communist states, did these regimes actually resemble anything predicted by even Marx himself or advocated? No, they didn't. There was no writing in, no mention in Marx of the necessity of a godlike leader, but a godlike leader eventually sprung up, or a collection of godlike leaders, in each of these communist regimes. They all had the cult of the individual in order to justify their existence. Stalinism had Stalin as a living god on earth, and his sort of cult of personality became the model for all the other ones. In Russia, or even more particularly the Kim dynasty in North Korea, which is still around, it took on truly bizarre proportions. But you won't find any of that in Marx, or in Engels, or in Proudhon, or in Bakunin, or in any of the writings of these classical socialist intellectuals. This is something completely alien to them. Secondly, they had a massive military repressive apparatus. The Gulag, the Red Army, vast industrial complexes meant to feed the army, and a lot of the repressive apparatus was also meant to feed the military apparatus. None of that you will find in Marx. None of that you will find in Engels, Proudhon, or again any of the classical socialist intellectuals. This is something that was completely new, or at least completely alien. Now, these are just the obvious things that separate what became communism from the thinking that justified it, or that was at least used to justify it. There's another aspect of what we think of as when we think of communism today, and I'm reminded of a quote from one of my favorite movies, Apocalypse Now. Marlon Brando's character, Walter Kurtz, in a famous exchange, in a biting exchange, asks Willard, who is played by Martin Sheen, "You think my methods are unsound?" To which Willard replies, "Sir, I don't see any method at all." Kurtz's character saw himself as someone who was meant to defeat the Viet Cong, and he did it. It didn't matter what he had to do it. He just went at the Viet Cong, or any communist guerrilla movement, or anybody who actually he saw as his enemy, and he defeated them efficiently. But he did whatever he had to do. No method. Just go at the enemy's jugular, and you have achieved your aims. I would say that pretty much encapsulated the classical communist regime. I put both of those words in quotation marks, because I would say that they were neither communist nor regimes. Who was in charge of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, especially during periods like the Stalinist period? Who was at the top of the pyramid? Who was calling the shots? Anyone who was a member of the regime or a subject to it was walking on eggshells all the time. Everybody was in a state of complete fear for their lives at any given moment. Who were these people afraid of? Who was ultimately at the top? There was no one at the top. It was pure Hobbesian chaos. There was no regime. The head of the secret police, whom one would assume is the most powerful person in a police state, was just as insecure as anyone else. Beria, Yagoda, and the most notorious of them all, Ezhov, eventually ended up getting shot themselves. Who was pulling the strings? There was no regime. There was no method. The same thing was apparent when you saw high Maoism in the People's Republic of China. I guess the apogee of communism at that time, was the period we know as the Cultural Revolution. Hobbesian chaos. Everyone denouncing everybody else, nobody's in charge, and everyone is convinced that everybody else is a counter-revolutionary. Society disintegrated. There were no laws, there was no predictability. Life was indeed violent, brutish, and short. The ultimate example of that is democratic Kampuchea. If you can find anything that resembles Marxism, socialism, any of that in these regimes, I'd like to see it. There was no regime there. Nobody was in charge. Whoever happened to have a gun in their hands was the person who was in charge of the regime until somebody with two guns came along. I don't think that a lot of people who denounce communism can see through the matrix of fear and hatred that has always been built around these things. And I don't blame anyone for fearing and hating it. But don't let one's natural aversion to these sorts of things repel you or make you blind to understanding what was happening there. In most advanced totalitarian societies, there is no regime, there is no predictability, there is no rule of law, there is no chain of command. It's just crazy chaos. This is just the first of a series of videos that I'm going to make where I try to deconstruct this idea that Marxism, fascism, and all these sorts of things are one and the same thing. And I'm just sort of trying to set the tone of the debate and tell you where my head is in terms of these issues. And again, I sort of see communism as one of my greatest heroes, George Orwell, saw it as just a completely crazy, nonsensical, unpredictable thing. There's one term defined. Thank you.